do you think Piers is so offensive?
Well, I think the way that Piers talks about trans people, and specifically non-binary people, is that you mock them, you make fun of them, you use them as entertainment. You use the lives of real people in this country, a vulnerable minority, as something to make fun of and get a reaction. And I don't think that's the quality journalism
When has
that you
he
do
done
elsewhere.
that?
Well,
Be
for example,
specific.
well, when you claim that you're a two-spirit penguin.
Yeah, you know why I did that?
Go on.
Because you and I had this debate about the 100 genders.
Yeah.
And I made the point, if literally you can now identify in 100 different ways your gender, including two-spirit person and all this other stuff, then I'm entitled to identify as a two-spirit penguin. In other words, there are no limits. And what's interesting is, you want me to respect all those 100 genders, however ludicrous some of them are, but you have zero respect for my right to identify myself in any way I see.
What do you guys think about this conversation so far in the chat? What do you guys think in the comments? Let me know what your opinion is so far in the comments. Is there more than two genders? And should you get fired if you believe there's only two genders? Let's continue.
See fit. So in other words, it's one rule for you. You say everyone's entitled to say they can be whatever they want. But the moment I decide that I want to be a two-spirit penguin, you go absolutely nuts and want to control how I self-identify.
That's not how it
That is the point I'm making. That is not transphobic. That is exposing a flaw in your position.
It isn't, because being a penguin isn't a gender. That's not on the gender spectrum.
No, but Benjamin, can't you see how he's taking it to the absurd degree?
It doesn't matter how many times you pretend to be Pingu Morgan. That's still not a gender that people can identify with. But what we know is that there will be people watching this program this morning who might be vulnerable, who might be unsure, that are trans, that are non-binary, and it can do real damage. When I was growing up, I watched GMTV religiously, and I was gay and unsure about my sexuality. And I fear that if that had been mocked constantly on breakfast telly,
there
that
are
would have damaged.
Okay, but on that point, there are a few people who have been louder and prouder about promoting gay rights on television than I have relentlessly on this program. To zero credit for people like you, right?
I mean, I don't think not hating gay people is a great achievement.
Nobody has been louder and proud in promoting trans rights, right? And India will confirm that because she's seen it and she's responded to it and come on and debated it with me. So when you call me racist, homophobic, sexist, no, but I've seen all the stuff on Twitter in the last 2 days, right?
These people do call him these things. They do. And just because you have an opinion on certain things doesn't mean that you're a racist, doesn't mean that you're transphobic, doesn't mean that you're a hater, or it's hate speech, or you're anti-Semitic, or you're this, that, and this. Just because I disagree with you doesn't mean that it's hate speech. And that's the silly part about all of this. These people think that everything we say or everything anybody says that disagrees with their ideology, they should get punished for it. Just because, in the same sense, you might not agree with my ideology, that don't mean that I want you to get fired. To me, that just doesn't make no sense. But let's continue.
But apparently I'm racist, I'm transphobic, I'm bigoted, I'm homophobic. It's all baloney. It's actually baloney. What I think should be happening is this whole gender debate, to me, has got completely out of control.
Absolutely.
And the reason I feel so incensed, and I'll come to India in a moment, the reason I feel incensed about this 100 gender thing, imagine being India Willoughby, who's gone through transitioning, which is an extraordinarily difficult, emotional, psychological, and physical process, lasting a long period of time. And then when you finally get to transition to be a woman, right? Having wanted to be that your whole life, then you get told, actually, it's meaningless because there are now 100 ways to identify gender.
Well, let's hear from India.
Yeah, I think Piers is a beacon of light, and most trans people, and I'm actually going to use the word transitioners here, because transgender now has become something completely different. Transgender now is about floating about in the middle, no commitment, you pick and choose who you want to be. And with the greatest respect, I don't need any gay people coming in to represent me because I'm trans. It's not the same as being gay. And if you're saying that you know, this is making a mockery of gender. Well, what's your views on drag? I find drag far more offensive than anything that Piers says.
Drag is
Yo, she got a good point. She got a good point. She wants to be, she's a man, clearly. And she wants to be a woman. He wants to be a woman. So he transitioned himself into being a woman. And he or she is letting it be known that she's not gay. She ain't in the same category. This ain't LGBTQ. This is only T. This is only T over here. We don't care about what you're talking about as a G. And that's honestly, I understand, because they making it seem like they're all one group when it's a bunch of groups in that one category. That's what it comes off as. But let's continue.
Gay, no, but drag is gay men dressing up as women in a flamboyant way, exaggerated mannerisms.
Drag is a beautiful art.
No, it's not a beautiful art.
India, do you not
whatsoever.
accept? It is. That's a ridiculous comment. Do you not accept, though, that you identify as you're a trans woman?
No, I no longer. Do you know what? I no longer identify as trans because it's become so embarrassing because of people like you and what you champion.
Oh, India.
I'm ashamed of it.
You must
awful.
Accept. There are people. There are bigoted people in this country.
I don't accept there are 100
genders.
There
are bigoted people in this country who don't recognise your identity. Why is it okay when you recognise that is unacceptable and bigoted for you to turn to non-binary people and say you don't recognise their identity? Isn't that a race to the bottom?
How can non-binary be transgender? What exactly are you transitioning?
Well, it's under the umbrella.
You don't even believe in gender. So how can you be transgender? It's made a mockery of the whole...
Man, they done made up so much words now that I done forgot what everything meant. I done forgot. I don't even know some of these words. Some of these words is brand new. What's a cis? What is a cis? I heard a cis woman, cis man, non-binary, binary. Like, wasn't it just man and woman and that's all you needed to know? What is cis now? What is that? Can somebody explain that to me? But let's continue.
Agree.
The whole
I totally agree.
And by the way, I've heard from lots of people.
I've heard lots of people. Yeah, but you're not compassionate, are you?
I am. Incredibly compassionate.
It's this hard line. They are so intolerant.
I've rarely been subjected to more foul abuse on social media than I have in the last few days since this campaign started against me. There is an aspect of, I'm afraid, your lobby group, for want of a better word, the gender lobby group, which is highly abusive. It wants everybody that they don't agree with to be fired, cancelled, destroyed, and everything else. And I say, what is wrong with debate? You and I came on and we debated it on here, right?
Yeah.
I actually learned a bit from you, and perhaps you learned a bit from me, and maybe you didn't. But your response to a good-natured debate on that is to now come back on and demand I get fired because you only want people sitting here that you agree with. And I say that most people, and I say this with respect to you, most people think the concept of 100 genders is utter nonsense. Yeah. And if it takes me to say on television, get away from this ridiculous control freakery stuff that no one's allowed to challenge it. If it's to me that says that, I'm going to say it. And you're not going to stop me. And you're not going to...
Talk that talk, Pierce. Talk that talk, Pierce. Just because we don't agree with you don't mean we can't say what we got to say. And that's the honest truth, whether you like it or not. I mean, as long as it's not something that'll damage somebody really, or that'll hurt somebody really. If we don't agree, then we just don't agree. I don't agree with you that there's 100 genders. I only agree with that there's 2 genders. Sorry. You can identify as who you want to identify as, and I will identify as who I want to identify as. But when it comes down to it, and we look at it, how the male and female is born, they are born one way, male, baby girl, or baby boy. And it's that simple. You can try to break it down however you want to, But we ain't doing that over here. We ain't doing that over here. Let's continue.
Going to get me fired.
And what,
You're
what
not.
exactly is your expertise on gender? Have you got any gender issues?
I'm a cisgendered male, and I feel happy to be comfortable in that.
Benjamin, you'll have to explain what cisgender is,
Cisgendered
because
means
it's
I
not
was,
a
I was born as a man,
wide
and I was born as a man, and I identify
You're a
as
male.
a man.
You're a man.
But the
Just a
truth is,
man, you don't need cis.
when you think you're under attack, imagine.
This is what I was talking about earlier. Why are they talking about what is a cis? Last time I checked, the cis was a woman. Hey, sis. If you're a man, you're just a man. Why? What is a cis man? That don't make no sense. Stop adding words. Just cis. No, you're a man. You were born as a man. You're a boy.
Being someone who has been criticized by their friends, by their family, by their school, by parts of the media from the day they were born.
I
just
would much
being
rather
who they
live in
are.
peace.
There's a school
It's
near.
more interesting. It's got humour.
There's a school where I grew up, near where I grew up, in Brighton, right? About 5 miles from where I grew up. There are now 85 kids identifying as gender fluid, non-binary. It is nonsense.
It's confusing people.
It's confusing everybody. You've got kids watching this program now, hearing you say there are 100 ways to identify your gender, not male and female. There are 100 ways. You could be a
100 ways to be compassionate. And do you know what?
It's not compassionate.
Do you know what?
It's utterly confusing.
Do you know what would be
and it's
better?
dangerous.
Do you know what would be better than you being fired? Because actually, I'm not intensely keen on this cancelled culture. What would be better?
You signed the petition to have me fired.
I did, because you don't seem to want to learn. But what would be better
No,
is if you wanted to learn.
I don't want to learn how
if
you
you wanted
think.
to educate
I don't want to
yourself.
think how you think is what you mean. You want to fire me because you want me to think
What
how
most
you think.
people on Twitter
and my
do as
problem
well.
about liberals today is they've become so illiberal. They're only interested in making other people agree with them and think like them. And if they don't, they no platform them, they ban them, they cancel them, they sign petitions to get people fired, and it is utter nonsense.
Okay.
Do you ever think
I completely agree. I completely agree. And we're gonna dead that there. We're gonna dead that there. I completely agree. You should not be getting fired. You should not want somebody to lose their job, lose their likelihood, anything, lose their life over a discussion that really ain't that big of a deal? Because we all know it is some weird conversation. It's a very strange conversation, and everybody knows. Like, if you're just common sensely thinking, it's man and woman.